I'm Kerry. Nice to meet you all. I'm from Showtown and I've got a little story for you today. This is in honour of our Seaside week. We're really missing being able to go down to the beach and spend the day there digging big holes and making big sandcastles and paddling in the sea. And we thought we'd write a little story just to remind us of what that felt like. And the illustrations today are from Laura from our team from Showtown as well. And you can also make a sandcastle that goes with it, the end of the story. So here we go, here's our little story. It's called Here Today. Arthur and his sister Martha were jumping about with excitement. They could see the glistening sands from the tram. They were in Blackpool on their holidays with Nanny and Grandpa. They had never been to the beach before. Running across the beach whilst flipping off their shoes behind them, they could feel the sand between their toes and hear the lapping waves. Arthur led the way as he zigzagged across the bumpy wet sand. He was looking for the best sandcastle spot. Let's try here. Oh no, wait, let's sit here. No, hang on, here looks better. Finally picked a spot and Grandpa set about putting up the deck chairs. Not as easy as it looks. He kept getting his head stuck. When Grandpa got himself into a big messy tangle, Nanny had to pull him out. Arthur took out his bucket and spade and wasted no time at all. Martha was desperate to help and joined in the digging with her spade. Nanny and Grandpa's next job was to put up the windbreaker. Grandpa kept hitting his thumbs, knocking on the wooden poles. Nanny took over. Arthur's first bucket of sand was full now. He flipped it over and tapped on the top. He carefully lifted it off and waited to see what was underneath. Not bad, Arthur thought to himself. The sand was just the right consistency, not too wet and not too dry. Arthur filled his bucket again. Nanny and Grandpa were busy spreading out the blankets and the yummy picnic. There were sandwiches, pork pies, carrot sticks, strawberries and homemade cakes. Nanny caught Grandpa eating the cake. Oi, cheeky, not before your sandwiches. Arthur had now built 6 sandcastles, all in a circle, whilst Martha dug a wibbly-wobbly moat around the outside to fill it with water. What you need are some decorations, shells as windows and doors, said Nanny. And a stick for the top, said Grandpa. Nanny and Martha went off to collect the shells of all different shapes and sizes. Some were stripy, some were fan-shaped, and some were long and black. Arthur was busy adding 5 more sandcastles to the top of the first 6. It was getting bigger. He was very proud of his castle. Grandpa helped Arthur and Martha add the beautiful shells as windows and doors. They finished by adding a stick to one of the castles as Nanny shouted, "Picnic time!" Arthur didn't want to leave his sandcastle, but Nanny's cakes were the best. He didn't want to miss out. The 4 of them huddled together in their windbreaker and shared out the food. Arthur tucked into his cheese sandwich whilst admiring his amazing castle. "You've made a good one there, Arthur," said Grandpa with a wink. In the distance, Arthur could hear the faint dingle of bells. That's an odd sound to hear on the beach, he thought to himself. A moment later, in the corner of his eye, he could see a strange shaped shadow with 2 pointy ears moving across the sand and getting closer to his sandcastle. He stood up to have a look. It was 3 donkeys with children on their backs and they were heading straight for the sandcastle. "Look out!" shouted Arthur. But it was no good. The donkeys didn't change direction. They were going to trample all over his sandcastle. The whole family stood up and ran towards the sandcastle, waving at the donkeys in the other direction. Go that way, they all shouted together. Suddenly, the man guiding the donkeys came to the front and steered them around the sandcastle with a huff and a puff. They only just missed it. "Phew," said Arthur. "Phew," said Martha. "Crumbs, that was a close one," said Grandpa. And they all settled down to have some cake. No sooner had they taken a bite of cake than a group of young boys playing football were running towards Arthur and Martha's sandcastle. Up jumped Arthur again. Stop, he shouted. Be careful, mind out for the sandcastle, shouted Nanny. One of the boys had already kicked their football and it was heading straight for the sandcastle. Martha surprised everyone as she ran out, dived in front of the sandcastle, catching the ball. Phew, said Arthur. Phew, said Martha. Crumbs, that was a close one, said Grandpa. It was turning out to be hard work protecting a sandcastle. They were so busy keeping donkeys and footballs away that they hadn't spotted that the tide was coming in. The waves were getting closer and closer. Water, 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 giggled Martha. Oh no, not water, cried Arthur. The four of them watched as the moat filled with water. Martha clapped with delight. Arthur knew what was coming next. Slowly, with each wave, the sandcastle crumbled down into a big lump of sand, shells and a stick. As the tide started to wash it all away, Nanny said, Come on, we had best pack up and go back to the hotel. Arthur dragged his feet as they walked back across the beach. As he reached the prom, he looked back at where his sandcastle once stood. Nanny put her arms around Arthur. You know, it's a good job that the sea takes away all the sandcastles every day. Why is that, Nanny? Asked Arthur in a grump. Because we get to have fun building another one tomorrow. Wow, we can come back tomorrow? Asked Arthur. Oh, yes. And we'll make some more sandcastle memories tomorrow. And we can keep those forever. Arthur's face filled with a big smile. Tomorrow's sandcastle will be even bigger and even better, he thought to himself. I can't wait to get back to building sandcastles just like Arthur. I bet you can't either. We must appreciate our beach when we can get back to it and spend lots of time there. See you soon. Bye-bye.